For more on this gun debate, let's turn to Lincoln Mitchell. He's a professor of political science at Columbia University. He's also a political analyst and a writer. Professor, I mean, the obvious question is, what are these executive actions really going to do in terms of making a difference when it comes to gun violence, which the president called an epidemic in this country?
This executive action and these comments today by Biden really should be best understood as the attempt by the president to set a tone, to put a marker out there and say, we, my administration, are going to do something about this. This one issue about not being able to buy the gun kit that you put together and it can't be traced, yeah, it probably shouldn't be legal to do that. It's not going to dramatically change anything. If we really want to fight gun violence, we have to take more dramatic steps, and that will be very difficult to succeed in that.
And that brings me to my next question. How likely is congressional action when this is such a polarizing issue?
Well, one thing we should think about is how we define the term polarizing. It's not polarizing among the American people. Poll after poll after poll shows that the American people support reasonable and pretty strong gun reform laws. The Republicans in Congress don't. So the question is, or the answer to your question is, if the filibuster is still strong and if you still need 60 votes for closure on something to do with gun reform, then it's going to be very difficult to get this through Congress. But if the filibuster is abolished, then these ideas, which have the support of the majority of the American people and have had that support for years, will be passed. So once again, the filibuster is really the crux of the issue here, and I know we're tired of talking about that.
Can executive actions, Professor, be challenged since they're not a legislation?
Well, anything can be challenged because if it's not constitutional, it's not constitutional. And so there's two issues here. One is the substance of the executive action. Is it constitutional? Does it violate the Second Amendment? And essentially, that's a partisan issue. Hardline right-wing judges are going to say, yes, it violates the Second Amendment, and the center and the left are going to say, no, it isn't. The other question is what can be done by executive action, and increasingly we're seeing more and more being done by executive action because Congress, again, because the filibuster can do so little. So our problems in America are either solved by the judiciary through executive action, or in most cases not solved at all, which is what we've seen with guns for the last decades since the reforms of the mid-90s.
I want to put up a tweet by the NRA, and then I want to get your reaction. I'm going to read it out to you so you can't, because you can't see it. They basically posted a tweet saying, let's be clear as we're watching this Biden circus. These actions could require Americans to surrender lawful property, push states to expand confiscation orders, and put a gun control lobbyist to head ATF. Biden is dismantling the Second Amendment. It's time to stand and fight. That sounds like a threat to me.
Well, remember, for the NRA, it's always time to stand and fight, right? And yes, when you're talking to a constituency that now is not gun owners, but the fringe of the most radical gun owners, yes, that does sound kind of threatening. It's also worth noting that there's nothing that the president's proposing that says we're going to take guns away from people. And frankly, the law, it would be very difficult to do that legally, but that's part of the problem. Gun ownership in America, if you look at the numbers, one of the things that's striking is that many, many Americans who own guns don't own 1 or 2 guns. They own 7, 8, or 10 guns, right? And unless we begin to take those numbers down, there's enough guns out here to keep America armed to the teeth for another decade. And there's nothing in Biden's proposal that says we're going to take them away from people. And there is a legal question about how you take lawfully acquired property away from people.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Professor Lincoln Mitchell, thank you.
Thank you.